Okay, welcome everybody to our first scheduled meeting in February of 2025. This is our city council meeting. I'll call this meeting to order, and as always, we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Barb, if you would read the clerk's open meeting statement for us.
Sure. This meeting and all meetings of the Common Council are open to the public. Proper notice has been posted and given to the media in accordance with Wisconsin state statutes, so the citizens may be aware of the time, place, and agenda of this meeting.
And would you also take roll?
Mayor Smith,
Here.
Colin Dykstra,
Here.
Paul Hagan,
Here.
Eric Halverson,
Here.
Dimitri Martin,
Here.
Paul Mayo,
Here.
Corey Nagel,
Here.
Eric Olson,
Here.
Dave Peterson, Scott Perchatsky,
Here.
Henry Velliker.
Here.
9 present. We have a quorum.
Thank you, Barb. You want to start the introduction of the department heads too, please?
Sure. Barb Nowak, City Clerk.
Aaron Jensen, City Administrator.
Eric Bailey, Library Director.
Stephanie Reif, Finance Director.
Laura Colbert, Parks and Rec Director.
Pete Krager, Chief of Police.
Thank you. Josh is in the back. Josh Warner, our IT, and Justin is on assignment tonight, so we're full here. Next up, we have the consent agenda. This is items that we would take with one motion, unless you see something on there that you would like moved to the regular agenda. If not, we're looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Olson, second by Martin, that we approve the consent agenda as printed. Discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against, say no.
Aye.
No. Motion carried. Gotta slow down. Next up, regular agenda. No new additions or changes to that. So again, we would be just looking for a motion to approve.
Move to approve the regular agenda.
I had one. Scott, second by Colin.
Sure, I'll second it.
Thank you. That we approve the regular agenda. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against, say no. Motion carried. Under announcements and correspondence, we have public input. This is for non-agenda items. If there's anybody in the audience or council members or staff that would like to speak to us on a non-agenda item, this is your opportunity. Just please state your name and limit your discussion to 3 minutes or less. Any public input? All right, no unfinished business, so let's go to new business. We have the city wellness program, WellWorks, and biometric screening. Stephanie, it looks like that's you.
Thank you, Mayor Smith. This report will start on page 44. As part of our ongoing efforts to support employee health and well-being, we're recommending that we bring back the health risk assessments, also known as employee biometric screening. Data Care at Work has a wellness portal, also called WellWorks for You, that we would be using to replace our current wellness portal, Preventative Healthcare or Prevention Cloud. As you all know, biometric screening is designed to help identify potential risks early and offer the opportunity to take preventative action. There's a lot of language in my memo, so I won't read through all of it, but I will point on a few things. The participants that will be included in this are all full-time employees and spouses that are currently on our healthcare plan. We recommend them to participate in the screening. It is not mandatory. We will also be offering a wellness rewards program through this new WellWorks for You, and employees are eligible to receive incentives and awards as part of our wellness program. That can be obtained through participating in challenges and using the fitness tracker for any events that we offer through the wellness program. The cost of this program is about $8,000 and falls well within our budget for 2025, which is $20,000. Theta Care at Work currently runs our EAP program, so this would just be in addition to our current contract with them. In conclusion, biometric screening is going to provide a more data-driven, personalized approach to our employee wellness program. And it's our recommendation to support the agreement with Theta Care at Work in the city of Waupaca to utilize their wellness program, Well Works for You, which also includes their on-site biometric screening.
Thank you, Stephanie. Again, I think it's a good program. It actually could help with our costs too at the city, and it's obviously very good for our employees too to keep current with those things. So, as Stephanie said, it is staff's recommendation that we enter into an agreement for this WellWorks and biometric screening. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion by Olson. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Dykstra. Council agrees to go into an agreement with Theta Care at Work in the city of Waupaca for the wellness program. Any further discussion?
Mayor, I was just wondering about
Yep, go ahead.
regular part-time employees and people maybe perhaps not on our insurance. Why were those not included?
It was just the recommendation from Theta Care at Work, since those who are eligible for health care under our plan would be recommended to take part in this. I can certainly ask about part-time employees. I think it was just a cost for us that we were just trying to keep within our budget. And since we are trying to keep it for those who are eligible for health care, that's why it was chosen that way.
Don't we have some part-time employees who are?
Paul, can you speak up a little bit?
I'm sorry, don't we have some part-time employees who are on our insurance plan?
We don't have any part-time employees on our health care.
It's good though, Paul, that she asked that question. I think that's a good question.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Steph. Paul. Go ahead, Corey.
Would requiring our workers and spouses to participate lower our health insurance costs?
So this was a discussion that was had with Theta Care as well. And in previous years, we had looked at this as well. We can't really mandate it. It's just not ethical, I guess, is the best way to put it. The answer to the question, probably. But we just won't
one of the
mandate.
things the school district did for years was if you didn't participate, you paid a higher premium.
Yeah,
percent.
I know, because I'm on that insurance,
Right.
actually.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you weren't required, but you were financially compelled to participate.
Sure, yep.
And this is something, Corey, that, and I'm not sure when that stopped or if it's still going at the school district. When we first started this or brought this to the city, prior to the break in COVID, all of that, we actually had the exact same setup. And then we were advised at that time from legal to go away from that. So my guess is something changed in that 5 to 6 year ago period. But,
So and this is the first year that they didn't have us do that.
okay,
But I think they went away from the screening entirely.
okay. I also know, Corey, you asked a month ago or so when we brought this forward. I want to point out that Stephanie did do some background, looked into some other options for healthcare providers to see if they would provide this, and really found that either the answer was no or we didn't even get a response. So bringing this back because of that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else? So we have a motion on the floor. This is an agreement, so we'll need a roll call vote here.
Paul Mayo,
Aye.
Paul Hagan,
Aye.
Henry Veliker,
Aye.
Eric Halverson,
Aye.
Colin Dykstra,
Aye.
Dimitri Martin,
Aye.
Corey Nagel,
Aye.
Eric Olson,
Aye.
Scott Perchatsky.
Aye.
9 ayes, motion carried.
All right, Stephanie, thank you. Next up, we have a proposal to enter into the Comprehensive Outdoor Recreation Plan contract with East Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission. Laura, that's got your name on it.
Thanks, Mayor. All right, so we have contracts that last for, or corps that last for 5 years, and I apologize, the last corp was issued for 21 through 25. And this future one will be for 26 through 2030. The reason why it's really important to continue our comprehensive outdoor rec plans is so that we can keep getting grants and maintain our master plans that we have for our parks. It's a guiding force for decision-making. At any rate, we had some leftover funds in our Brainerd's Bridge project from 2024 because Greg, our grant writer, got us $19,000 worth of grants. So we did not have to take any of that money out of the capital funds for Brainerd's Bridge in '24. So we're hoping we can pull that $14,000, add a little bit to it, and use that in our contract with the East Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission. So the recommendation is to approve the Corp contract, and they're requesting $14,237.98 with ECW RPC, and to pay for this using the unused capital funds from the 24 Brainerd's Bridge project.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? Comments? Motion?
Move to approve.
Motion by Hagan.
Second.
Second by Olson, that we enter into continue the agreement with East Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission for the amount of $14,237.98 to be included in the Comprehensive Outdoor Recreation Plan. Any further discussion? Barb, will call the roll.
Eric Halverson,
Aye.
Colin Dykstra,
Aye.
Paul Mayo,
Aye.
Corey Nagel,
Aye.
Eric Olson,
Aye.
Scott Perchatsky,
Aye.
Paul Hagan,
Aye.
Dimitri Martin,
Aye.
Henry Veliker.
Aye.
9 ayes, motion carried.
Laura, thank you. Next up, proposed contract with New Day Planning LLC. Aaron, that's yours.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Smith. Let's make sure I get to the right memo here. All right, City Council, this memo starts on page 67 of your packet. The principal for New Day Planning LLC is here in the audience, Tricia Braun. So if you have any questions for Tricia specifically, she would love to answer them. I'll give you a little background on this. Actually, the conversation around partnering with Tricia started sometime this fall, but the conversation around land use, specifically around the Highway 10 and County Highway A interchange in that corridor, started this summer when we had an application for a zoning change from a commercial to a heavy industrial in that area. Actually, our future land use map does not allow for heavy industrial. It could potentially allow for some specific light industrial type of uses, and depending on the area that you're looking. Right now, on the north side of Highway 10, we have light industrial zoning, and then we have B4 commercial largely on the south. When you look at future land use map, we have community mixed use, which is primarily commercial residential, but also does dip into that light industrial, no heavy industrial. And then we have straight commercial on the north end. So none of those would allow for an I-2 type zoning. None of this is to say that this process is to flesh out a justification for I-2 zoning. However, it is to look at, just take a deeper dive before we have the conversations about potentially changing the future land use map regarding the feasibility of commercial and industrial types of developments. So right now, actually, in our future land, or our comp plan, which the city has to do every 10 years, I think was last done in 2020. Andrew Dane, if you remember him, he did it in conjunction with city staff and stakeholders. Chapter 3 is our land use chapter, and it speaks about some of the demands on a surface level from a commercial and industrial demand standpoint. At that time, it was largely believed that the Fulton Street and Churchill Street corridors had ample space for the demand that we would see in commercial development. And at that time, commercial was not as likely from a surface level market feasibility standpoint as maybe industrial was. There's a lot of dynamics to this because we know that we're better positioned to attract industrial, at least we think, because of the presence of the foundry and the heavy manufacturing that we do have, and maybe some things that work well with those businesses. However, our strategic plan also talks about the need to diversify our local economy, maybe attract some more commercial. So there's layers to this. Add another layer on, and Highway 10 is this very, very visible entry point from the east to our community. So what we hope this process results in, and the goal is to have Tricia, who has, I think you've seen her credentials within the memo, but she has experience with WEDC. She's been in multiple economic development director positions. She's heavy tied into WMC. She has a lot of connections in the site selector world, and she's going to help basically facilitate a conversation with a lot of stakeholders and a lot of people that have some knowledge that we don't have, and try to say, hey, City of Waupaca, here are the assets you have, here are what they're looking for, and maybe what that we're expecting them to be looking for over the next several years. Here's what you're most likely to attract, and here's what you might not be likely to attract. None of that is to say that any of it is guaranteed. However, it's, again, that deeper dive into the feasibility of both commercial and industrial. And then we hope to take that information that we get out of this process, which I believe, Tricia, about 3 months, I think 90 days if we do sign the contract, to, yes, specifically look at this area on the east side of town, because that is what has been talked about recently, but also like all of our future land use map decisions. Yeah, that's a summary, I think, of what we're hoping to accomplish through this process. And with that, I'll turn it over to, actually, let me just say this. Funding, that's an important part. It is $25,000. We, as you know, do not have a current economic development director position, so I'll kick it to Steph for our plan for funding it.
So with the vacancy of the Community and Economic Development Director, it's a big mouthful right there, we are saving approximately $10,000 per month, and we're going on almost 5 months here, so we have generated a surplus of almost $50,000 that we have towards this.
Yeah, so it is budgeted. In the 2025 budget, we would not be looking to take from reserves. It's just coming out of that line item currently. So with that, I'll open it up for any questions for either myself or Tricia.
You know, maybe before we open that up, Tricia, if you don't mind, if you would just step up to the podium, use the microphone, and just introduce yourself and say whatever you want to say.
Okay, absolutely. Well, thank you for having me here today, Mayor, Alderman, and for Aaron for having the initial conversations with me. As you've read in my resume, I've got too many years just to make myself feel old in economic development. It's been my passion. I actually ended up going to college and getting a degree related to land use and business just to do economic development. Started in River Falls, Wisconsin as a chamber director, and then the city of Zumbrota, Minnesota, as their community development director, more rural community. I cut my teeth on all aspects from zoning administration, economic development, planning, and then went out to Riverside, California, and had an entirely different experience as I was leading their industrial and office business attraction when I first started with the city. So really started to understand the value of relationships when it came to commercial real estate and developers and the business owners and leaders and what was important to them to help make projects successful. Doing that in California was a challenge, but with the city support, we had a lot of success. Moved back to Wisconsin in 2012 and started with the state at WEDC in 2013. and was their deputy secretary and COO for the 5 years before heading into the private sector. In that capacity, I led the programmatic divisions of WEDC, which included their business and community development, the business attraction efforts for the state, international trade, marketing, and business sector strategy development. So really understood really all of the different pieces and parts moving together within the state and helping to create a more competitive environment for Wisconsin businesses and for us to compete for businesses and future investment. So after a few years in private sector, my heart called me back to economic development, and that's really what prompted my launch of New Day Planning, to really be able to help those communities, to customer audiences, really manufacturers and smaller, more rural communities that are looking for some guidance, whether it's just an economic development strategy, business attraction, marketing, et cetera, which then led me to the conversation with Aaron. So thank you.
Thanks, Tricia. Appreciate it. Anybody have any questions for Tricia or Aaron? Go ahead.
So you said 3 months. When would this start?
Tricia, if we approve this contract tonight, I know you said it'd start quickly. Do you want to define quickly?
Absolutely. Yes, so the biggest time frame that we were sort of conservative with the timeline is trying to establish all the meetings that we've listed in here. And while it's a pretty good list, I actually anticipate there will be more than just these meetings. For example, as we're talking to some of the regional groups like New North, if they've landed a major manufacturing, a big deal, I'd want to talk to that manufacturer to see if I could set up a conversation to understand why they picked the area they did. There's been some fairly significant wins in other rural areas in Wisconsin, and talking to them and understanding what helped them with their decision. There's been Wisconsin companies that have made significant investments outside of the state, and just really trying to understand where and why those decisions are being made, especially if the areas that they've chosen are similar to Waupaca in terms of size, demographics, location, all of those features that you tend to get benchmarked against other communities for. So long-winded answer is it would start immediately, and then hopefully we would be able to complete it within 6 months if we're able to get all of those conversations under our belts.
Okay, so 6 months.
I'm sorry, 3. Sorry.
Okay. So into May, I mean,
Yes.
we would be hearing back something?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's, yeah.
Okay.
At the council level.
At the council level, absolutely.
Right. She'll be
Right.
working with staff throughout the whole
Yes.
process, yeah. Paul, go ahead.
How many of these particular studies have you done before?
For this type of particular study, not one specifically, but I've done several economic development strategy studies, whether it was for the entity for which I worked, at City of Riverside. I led their major community development strategy in 2011, I think it was, that we kicked it off, Seizing Our Destiny, which was a full comprehensive quality of life business development. The county of Sacramento County in California did their economic development strategy and have done more specific, kind of smaller focused for the downtown bit in Milwaukee, for the village of Waunakee. And I think for this particular study, the uniqueness of it is that you're building on something you already have. You have your comprehensive plan, you have an economic development strategy, and now this is time and place looking at a land use decision. And so that's really my forte and my experience is helping to ask those questions to the right people. The data is a good starting point on all assets, but it's really that anecdotal information that we're gonna pull from some of these conversations that'll help give you all the information from which to make that decision.
Mayor, can I just make a quick comment? One thing that when I first met Tricia, it was at actually a WMC event in the fall of 2024. One thing that struck me right away, and I was with Jared at the time, both of us, was that there must have been 200 people at the event, and she knew all 200, like very, very personally, it seemed like. So I think her connections, that's one thing that we struggle with, and like the site selector, the developer, when we're talking about large commercial or industrial development, being effective in that area, who to reach out to, how to have that relationship. And that was one huge benefit that we saw firsthand at that event. So I know.
And one of the things that I mentioned to Aaron in our original conversation is that there have been instances where you see communities that have had the Field of Dreams vision where they build it and assume they will come without putting in the homework and not putting in the research first. And so I think that's what really attracted me to, the fact that Waupaca was looking to take this step before going down that path, so they knew really what you wanted there, what the community wanted, what could be successful and supported along the way.
Scott, did you have a comment or question?
I was just wondering, like the time frame. You're going to give us this proposal. You're going to do meetings, or will we be able to tap into your expertise after you give us this first product?
I sure hope so.
Okay. And I didn't know if there was a timeline on the contract or something.
I'd say one thing, and I'm not going to answer that for Tricia, but I will say before we sign the we've already been made aware of a certain request for information for a large development that we would not have been made aware of if we weren't even having this conversation that Tricia got to us, and we're able to act on it. So,
All right, any other, Colin, go ahead.
In the memo that is here, the third bullet point under attachments is work example, but I don't really see one. Is there one that I'm missing?
oh yeah, yep. There's one that you're missing. That was actually the work in California. I don't know, that should have gotten on here. I'm sure it was I'm sure it wasn't you, Barb.
That's fine.
I didn't attach it to the email.
Then that was going to lead to the next question. You described the goal, but I didn't really get. That's why I was hoping there was a work example, like a deliverable. What are we going to see at the end of your 3 months to be something we can have an action item? Or what's the point of spending the money, I guess, is what do we get for it?
The deliverable, I think the work product that I provided to Aaron that he was going to share with you was, as you mentioned, from the County of Sacramento. So that was a pretty all-encompassing strategy, and it had different sectors and different communities within the county that focused on it. So that is slightly different from what you'll be receiving. What you'll be getting is a summary of, obviously, the high-level overview of the conversations that have been had, the findings from it, some of the recommendations that have come out from whether it's industry sectors and subsectors related with the data to support that. Essentially, if there's things that have come out that may not be a fit or have been advised, like, this just doesn't work in that, with a community that has, the attributes, or whether it's, because of location or size or whatever it might be. So essentially just giving high level recommendations, but it's hard to say concretely without knowing what some of those conversations are going to provide. One example would be the intention from the WEDC and the New North is to do a review of the RFIs that have come in, similar to the one that Aaron just used as an example. And what have those consisted of? How many of them would Waupaca have had property or land that would have fit? What industries are they? So that you can see, this is what's looking at Wisconsin. Do these fit? So there's going to be a lot of information, again, summarized with high-level recommendations, but somewhere in the meat at some point, maybe even more helpful as you're making other decisions on other properties besides just this one that you've really have at the forefront because of the timing.
Okay, so if I could repeat that so I understand, to me what you're saying is you're going to do some work locally with stakeholders locally and interview local people and local stakeholders and city employees, et cetera, and get a feel for what they think they want for our community, and combine that information with your knowledge about what's coming into the state of Wisconsin and how those two might mesh in order to promote that area of our community.
Yep. I would add to that a national perspective as well. And one of the notes that I've got in here is cohort communities outside of Wisconsin and how they've been successful in talking to some of the people that have done those projects and why they chose those locations, and would Waupaca potentially have been something that they would consider, just to give a little broader picture beyond Wisconsin.
And then our hope then would be that we could take that information and develop a strategy for attracting whoever to that area of our community.
Yeah.
Is that what?
I I'm speaking for Aaron right now, so you feel free to jump in. But I think he views this very much as a phase one and trying to get that information so you even know really where phase two might go.
No, I think that's accurate. So I think, yes, to your point of hoping that we can use that to build a strategy to actively seek potentially some of those developments, but also to make the right decisions when like zoning applications do come forward or future land use map applications come forward, and also help us prevent us from making mistakes in those areas.
Okay.
So yeah.
So somebody else had asked about your experience and if you've done this before, and you had to answer no. But I think in your background, you did have the one I wrote down that I looked up was bringing, I don't know how to pronounce it even. I think it's Haribo.
Haribo, correct.
To Wisconsin.
Yes.
I don't know if everybody's seen it. It's quite a large manufacturing facility. I think on the way to Chicago.
It's right in Pleasant Prairie. Yeah, that's one of my favorite projects. But in the roles that I've had, business attraction has always been a key component of my activity. So to your point, thank you. Yes, that project was one in which Wisconsin wasn't even on the radar, and we were able to. The consultant that worked on it had a very good relationship with Wisconsin and convinced them to talk to us. And then after the first meeting, there were a number of different factors that played into it. But it was one where we didn't fit the formula to begin with. But because of knowing how to position ourselves, which I think you all are doing a good job of like kind of taking those steps, we were able to convince them that this was a great place for them to set up their North American headquarters, manufacturing headquarters.
Do you feel that experience will help you in this role?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And
Even
then,
the relationships from that, just being able to call some of the people that have been on the front end of those projects, even if ones I have not been involved with. Yes. Yeah.
and then if we've got time, the final question I was going to have is, the airport is so close to that. Have you dealt with airports or that sort of?
In both ways of it being an asset and a reason that a company may want to locate near one, and also from zoning restrictions. So I think just understanding really where the height constraints may have to be, and then working within that. But yes, actually in all of the situations, we've really had to, a lot of them we've had to deal with airport proximity.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead. Corey.
I'm going to kind of piggyback off Colin's question there. So when we say east side, and I've got this map up on page 73 here, are we talking about these lighter purple parcels, or what? We say east side,
So
what are we talking about here?
I have it right here. Really, this whole area, Corey. This is so. This is Highway 10, the big gray section here. This is our zoning map. This is the airport. You can see the runway here. So yeah, I can tell you that the zoning application change request came in this brown area, which is that B4 commercial area. Another reason that I should mention that would be good to look at this right now. We recently obviously did the sewer extension. When we did that and put the sewer all the way to the terminal, we also prepped it to easily come through Highway 10 here and then service the south side of Highway 10. Now, that's not City of Waupaca property right now, but there are large potential development sites for the future that could be served by utilities. And I would assume even looking at that as like an extraterritorial land use.
So are we talking about annexing land in the future then?
We're not, that's not something we're looking to actively do. It just depends on if there's a specific development interest that needs sewer or water or something like that, then that's always a potential option.
It's great to have these questions and comments, but at the same time, we want to make sure that she has the ability to keep an open mind and not be directed necessarily by council on what should be done in that area. We all have our own ideas of what should be out there, or what could be out there, and so on. And I like this idea that, number one, we have somebody at the table, and like, for example, at New North or at these events that she goes to. And number two, an outside source that's giving us a concept that maybe we never even thought about. And so I was impressed with that. And so I think, again, even if Jarrett was still here, I think this is a value to us. It's even more of value because we don't have an individual in the economic development area right now. So, anybody else have any questions, comments? Go ahead, Eric.
So I guess, looking at this, I realize it's a study, but if this would go into an I-2, what are some types of, an example of some of the industry or manufacturing that could possibly be in there with?
Yeah, that's another great question. So let's say that we deem that I-2 is something that is feasible, or like that type of industry. I think we would probably, along this corridor, it's like, in my opinion, it's likely that we wouldn't just slap our current I-2 zoning on there. If you're familiar with the Fulton Street corridor, we actually have an overlay district. It's called the Fulton Street Corridor Overlay District. That was created new. It could be something similar here because of the high visibility. What I would, and I don't know this, I would guess that, future city councils may not want to see a scrapyard go on the Highway 10 corridor in that visible of an area. So we would want to potentially create a different type of I-2 zoning district that met the goals of that specific spot. Does that help?
And it would be just the opposite too, if you were to deem all of this like residential, either R1 or R2 or R3, how does that affect you then if you wanted to do I-2 out there? I mean, so there's a lot to moving parts there to think about when you're doing this. Okay. Anybody else? We're looking for, we do not have a motion yet. We're looking for a recommendation to enter into agreement with New Day Planning LLC for an amount not to exceed $25,000, except for, as she lists on page, it's on 71 on our packet, reimbursable expenses as far as like travel and hotel she has to stay over, and any other incidental cost would be in addition to that, and she would invoice us for that. But in essence, it's the $25,000 that we're looking for tonight. Anybody want to make that into a form of a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Hagan, second by Nagel, that we approve entering into this agreement. Any discussion? Barbara, call the roll.
Paul Hagan,
Aye.
Colin Dykstra,
Aye.
Scott Perchatsky,
Aye.
Eric Halverson,
Aye.
Henry Veliker,
Aye.
Dimitri Martin,
Aye.
Paul Mayo,
Aye.
Eric Olson,
Aye.
Corey Nagel.
Aye.
9 ayes, motion carried.
Yeah. Yeah, Trish, thanks for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Next up, we have resolution number 1571. This is a resolution approving the city of Waupaca's participation in the Green Tier Legacy Communities Charter. Aaron, that's you again.
All right, thank you, Mayor Smith. Council members, this is on page 75 of your packet. This is something, we've also been having some conversations with local residents, the Waupaca Foundry, the Wisconsin DNR, about just some green initiatives in which we can collaborate together on. One specific topic that actually started this whole conversation was the idea of producing or being a carbon credit producer by potentially, I know Justin's got an idea that he's actually moving forward with on planting trees around wells 5 and 6, which is our island kind of in Lind, but is city property, to protect those wells from phosphorus and things like that. And then there was that conversation went to, well, we know that the foundry has to or does buy carbon credits to help stamp kind of their product as green product, and can they purchase those carbon credits locally here in Waupaca? So long story short, what we found out, that's ongoing, but what we did find out is that the foundry participates in this statewide green tier program, and so do multiple municipalities in this green tier legacy program. So all really, we said, what are the benefits of it? The benefits are that we get additional point considerations on any DNR grants that we apply for, which is always a plus. Specifically now with the lead line replacement grants, I know Justin is excited about that. Also, peer-to-peer learning and resource sharing, so we would have to go to quarterly meetings. They've been virtual lately, but otherwise they're at select spots around the state in which we just collaborate with other communities and staffs and see what they're doing in this area. It doesn't have to be one person. We can split it up. Sometime it might be something that has to do with inland lakes or waters, and that might be Laura because she's part of that committee, and sometimes it might be carbon credits, and that might be Justin, and sometimes it might be me. So there's that. Also, you have a specific assigned DNR liaison. There are times when it's tough to get your answer in a quick response. So we'll have that point person available at all times, and then some other resources that they have. But those are the main benefits. Then we asked, of course, what are the risks? Well, that really aren't. They ask us to put a resolution together. There's no cost associated with it. If we don't go to these, they do ask that we go to these meetings. If we don't for 2 or 3 or a year, then we may not be a Green Tier Legacy community any longer. However, there's not necessarily a penalty for that. There is some reporting. There's like a one-time report up front, and then there's an annual report that I've asked around to some Green Tier Legacy communities, including Stevens Point and La Crosse, and the people that submit that reporting said it's not overburdensome. Again, if it got to be overburdensome, we could get out at any time. So I guess the first step would be to pass the resolution that's in your packet, and that's what staff is recommending.
Okay, any questions? Motion? Anybody?
Motion to approve Resolution 1571.
Second.
Motion by Dykstra, second by Martin, was it? Yep. To approve resolution number 1571. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against, say no. Sorry, Henry. Yeah, I'm sorry. We need to take a roll call vote. I'm getting chewed out here. Barb will take a roll. Sorry. With a smile.
Paul Hagan,
Aye.
Eric Halverson,
Aye.
Henry Veliker,
Aye.
Paul Mayo,
Aye.
Colin Dykstra,
Aye.
Dimitri Martin,
Aye.
Corey Nagel,
Aye.
Eric Olson,
Aye.
Scott Perchatsky,
Aye.
9 ayes, motion carried.
Thank you. Next up, we have license report number 1707. This is operator's license. There are 4 names on there. Again, we just, by state statutes, we're required to approve these, and place them on file. So we need a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Hagan, second by Olson, to approve license report number 1707. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against, say no. Motion carried. All right, next up, we have communications of the mayor. Number 1, don't forget that there is an election at our next meeting on the 18th. So by city rules, we then would have that meeting the next day, which would be the 19th. So Wednesday, the 19th is our next city council meeting instead of the 18th. And then also, I know this is a time where people try to get away. And so if you could just let Barb know if you're not going to be able to attend any of the meetings, in the next 2 months here, so that we make sure that we have, and that would include any of the committees or commissions that you're on too. So appreciate that ahead of time, just so we make sure that we have a quorum or a good majority at all of those meetings. Anybody else have anything for the good of the meeting tonight? Paul, go ahead.
Move to adjourn.
Motion by Paul Hagan, second by Olson, that we adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against, say no. Motion carried. We're adjourned at 6:44 PM.